Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with the look at the market for the week ending June 29th, 2018. Let me put up the disclaimer, take a look, read it. Make sure you understand that this is not an attempt to give professional investment advice. It's purely for educational purposes. So let's begin to look at some charts. The first one will be the weekly chart of the S&P 500. This is what we usually do. Now on the weekly chart of the S&P 500, let's take a look back. We made a high here of about 2800, 2801 in this bar, and we pulled back. Then we rallied all the way up to that same level, about 2800 again. Since then, we've pulled back a bit, and I drew the Fibonacci retracement levels in here. So this first line here is 23.6, this line is 38.2, and this is 50%. So we had a 50% pullback of the S&P 500 on a weekly chart, pullback from this trend here, from this low to this high. We did a 50% retracement, almost exactly. Now we're closing right at the 30 weighted moving average. Now we notice that the 4 EMA is above the 9 EMA, and that is above the 30 weighted moving average. But right now, I think we are now in this buy zone, somewhat between that 9 and 30. We're closing right here. And so I would expect we get somewhat of a rally from here. But as I mentioned in an email that I sent earlier in the week, I don't want to get fully invested again after selling off some stuff on Monday, some stocks that I had. I don't want to get back into everything again until we break above that 2800 level, 2750 to be exact. So continuing with the analysis of this chart, we see that the parabolic is still below the most recent bars, and so we have an uptrend. No indication to reverse that. And when we go down to the other indicators here, MACD histogram is slightly positive in bullish territory. RSI 12, and it's more significant on the weekly chart than any other. RSI 12 is still indicating a nice uptrend. So that is instructive. Now Williams percent hours come back down quite a bit, down to the 50% line, and we would hope that it would hold there if in fact this 50% retracement level is going to hold as support. And also we broke below the 4% line on this sum of the rate of change indicator. So we would like to see that, of course, break back up above 4%. So in summary, the weekly chart is still, on many of these indicators, still pointing to an uptrend. It's still saying we have an uptrend. Parabolic, moving averages, RSI 12, MACD, still indicating an uptrend. So let's take a look at the daily chart. So here's a daily chart of the S&P 500. And the first thing we notice is that, yes, it's been in a downtrend since we made this high. We've retraced all the way here, and we've retraced all the way back to the 50% Fibonacci retracement level, this dotted line right here. Now, what I notice here is that we've had two bullish haramis in succession, one here and then one here. This body is completely engulfed by this body, and likewise this one engulfed by this one. But on Friday, we had a bit more buying activity come in, and we don't know whether this will continue. So we'll see how that plays out. We still have the parabolic above the most recent bar. So the parabolic has been above here, and it's still there. So that hasn't reversed. Insofar as parabolic is concerned, it hasn't indicated a reversal of this downtrend. So what I'm wondering is, now that I've lightened up on a lot of the stocks that I own, I'm looking to see how fast I should get back into this market. I'm starting to buy back a couple of things. And this is suggesting that perhaps we will find some support here at the 50% retracement level, which is a very common occurrence, a retracement of 50% before we get another move up. We still have to break above that 2750 level in order to feel more comfortable about the fact that we have an uptrend again, a real solid uptrend. So when we look at some of the other indicators down here, before we leave this part of the chart, notice that we're also hitting the lower Bollinger Band. And oftentimes when we hit the lower Bollinger Band, it means that we are oversold. And so we're starting to go higher. Now, MACD histogram is trending up ever so slightly, not by much. But these histogram bars here seem to be a little shorter than this one, the last two. So that's encouraging from a bullish standpoint. RSI 12 seem to be trending up again. Williams seem to be trending up, still below the 50% line. And the sum of the rate of change indicator is doing the same. So on the daily chart, I am anticipating that we begin to see some movement again to the upside. So in summary, both the weekly chart is still in an uptrend according to the moving averages and in parabolic, etc. And we've had that pullback, this retracement on the daily chart, but I believe that we might see some more upside here. Mind you, all of these comments are simply based on what we're seeing on a chart, what I'm seeing on a chart. It has nothing to do with whether someone decides to put 1,000% tariff on some steel or aluminum or some damn thing like that. Just purely the technical analysis. So we'll see how all of this turns out. We've looked at this chart on the S&P before, the Ichimoku cloud. Now notice that since we broke above the cloud here, we came back and tested it once, went up to 2792, came back and tested it again. So oftentimes the upper line of the Ichimoku cloud serves as a very good support signal. So again, I'm anticipating that we might get more of a rally from here again. So let's go to some individual stocks. So we turn to some daily charts of some individual stocks. I'll take the shopping list that I sent you sometime in April 13 to be exact. So let's start with the first one, which is Align. Align Technology had a very impressive run up, gaining over 100%. And then it's been pulling back, consolidating here, all those gains. So it's now within that, area where you can certainly consider starting to buy it again, within the buy zone. But it's still trending now on MACD, so you'd like to see these indicators turn up a bit to have a little more confidence in the turnaround here. And here's a daily chart about Microsoft. You can see we had a nice run up here, and then we started consolidating, and we're still in that range here. So we're hitting the lower Bollinger Band, but it seems as though we might find support at this magenta line, which is the 50-day moving average. So we'll see how that develops. Some of these indicators down here are still in questionable territory, below their key levels. Here is Apple. I've owned it off and on, and even owned calls on it at times. So what happened here is that it really became very overbought, and we had this bearish divergence of MACD on the daily chart. Now it seems as though we're finding support at the 50-day moving average. I bought some back last week, later in the week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. So I own some of Apple again. These indicators are now starting to look as though they're trending up again. We'll see how it plays out. If we look at an Ichimoku cloud chart on Apple, we'll see that it seemed to find support right at the upper line of the cloud, which is also always very, reliable. It's quite reliable. We also seem to be hitting the parabolic here. So one can anticipate a switch now for the parabolic going below the recent, the future bars. A daily chart of MasterCard, and it just seems to be finding support as it often does at the 50-day moving average. Right here it found support, that magenta line, 50-day moving average, 50-day moving average. Seem to be finding some support here again. So this is a really steady moving stock. If we crunch the lines up, you'll see this. It's very steady. Good one to hold. Here's a weekly chart of IDEX Laboratories. I like this one quite a bit. I still have it. IDEX had a nice run up here, hit the upper Bollinger Band and pull back a bit. A little retracement back to the 30 weighted moving average. Parabolic still below the most recent bar. And MACD, no histogram, no divergence, no bearish divergence. And these indicators are looking pretty healthy here. If we look at a daily chart, you can see it seems to have pulled back here, seem to be finding support at that magenta line, which is that 50-day moving average. So I'm expecting IDXX to move higher from here. Here's NVIDIA. Here's a weekly chart, and you could see that we hit the upper Bollinger Band, and since then we pulled back a bit here. And so we are now between the 30 weighted moving average and the 50-day. Parabolic is still below the most recent bar. So, the trend seems to be okay here on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, you can see we broke below all of these moving averages, and it may be looking to find support here because we have a bullish Harami, two in succession, in fact, these two. But I don't own NVIDIA at this time. Here's a weekly chart of XLK, which is an ETF of some major NASDAQ tech companies, especially. And on the weekly chart, you could see we still have an uptrend. We're closing between the 9 and the 30, which suggests a buying opportunity, or this buy zone between 9 and 30, parabolic below the most recent bar. MACD still in positive territory. So let's look at a daily chart. On the daily chart, you can see that we've been hitting the low Bollinger Band, suggesting oversold conditions. And now we have this, really looks more like a bullish Harami, similar to the other stocks we saw with these bullish Haramis, 2 in a row. And so we may be finding support here at this level, just below the 50-day moving average. In fact, we're a little bit below that right now. Here's a daily Ichimoku chart of XLK, and you can see that it seems as though we could find support right here above the upper line of the Ichimoku cloud. Here's a weekly chart of Netflix. I'm going to move a little faster here. We're almost out of time. You can see we hit the upper Bollinger Band, and so we got this little bit of a pullback here. This is a weekly chart, and look at MACD, still looking pretty strong. On the daily chart of Netflix, we're right in the buy zone between the 9 and the 30. So this is one that I still like very much. A daily chart of Visa, and you can see how it seemed to be finding support at that 50-day moving average. We even have a bullish Harami here, as we did here. Quite a few of these stocks followed the general market and gave us 2 successive bullish Haramis. So Visa is one, as you know, I love very much. Now, what about Costco? Costco on the weekly chart looks really good. Look, you see it's been riding the upper Bollinger Band, pull back a bit, but now we have this Harami. So Costco is likely to go higher from here. But folks, that's all the time we have. This is a chart of Adobe, and it still looks pretty good. So hope you have had a great weekend. Enjoy the 4th of July, and we'll try to do this again next week.